13.8 billion years ago, the universe began with a flash hotter than anything that has existed since. In less than a second, space, time, and the laws of physics unfolded. 3 minutes later, the first atomic nuclei formed, hydrogen and helium. Everything else, every carbon atom in a leaf, every iron atom in your blood, waited billions of years to be cooked inside massive stars that lived and died long before our sun ever ignited. 9 billion years after the Big Bang, a cloud of gas and dust on the outer arm of the Milky Way collapsed. At its center, the sun flared to life. Around it, dust grains stuck together, became pebbles, became planetesimals, became planets. Earth grew quickly. 4.54 billion years ago, a Mars-sized world named Theia struck the young Earth at an angle. Debris from the collision coalesced into the Moon. That colossal impact spun our planet fast, tilted its axis, and gave it the largest moon relative to its size in the inner solar system. For 500 million years, Earth remained a glowing hell. A global ocean of magma covered the surface. Volcanoes spewed sulfur and carbon dioxide. The sky glowed dull red. Yet by 4.4 billion years ago, the crust cooled enough for the first tiny zircons to crystallize, and those crystals preserved evidence of liquid water. Oceans existed while the surface still shimmered with heat. Comets and water-rich asteroids bombarded the young planet and delivered trillions of tons of ice. Steam condensed, fell as scalding rain, and filled the basins that became the first seas. By 3.8 billion years ago, carbon molecules on the seafloor arranged themselves into boundaries, into cycles, into something that replicated. Life emerged, though no one saw it happen. In shallow sunlit waters, microbes built layered mounds called stromatolites. They captured sunlight and split water molecules, releasing oxygen as waste. For 2 billion years, they quietly transformed the atmosphere. Then, around 2.4 billion years ago, oxygen poured into the air in earnest. Anaerobic organisms that had ruled the planet rusted and died. Oceans turned red with banded iron formations. Earth's first mass extinction was caused not by an asteroid, but by life itself. The planet froze. Thick ice covered everything from poles to equator, not once but twice. Beneath miles of ice, life retreated to volcanic vents and waited. 541 million years ago, the ice melted. Oxygen levels climbed. In less than 20 million years, an eye blink in geological time, almost every major animal body plan appeared. Soft-bodied creatures of the Ediacaran gave way to worms with guts, to arthropods with jointed legs, to predators with grasping claws. Eyes evolved independently dozens of times. Vision reshaped the rules of survival. In ancient seas swam Anomalocaris, a meter-long nightmare with compound eyes and circular jaws. Trilobites scuttled across the seafloor, wearing lenses of pure calcite. The Cambrian Ocean became a laboratory of ferocious creativity. 420 million years ago, green algae crept onto mudflats and became the first plants. Their roots broke rock into soil. Their corpses fed the first land animals, millipedes, scorpions, eventually insects. 375 million years ago, fish with sturdy fins dragged themselves through Devonian shallows. Tiktaalik kept its gills but gained wrists and a neck. Lungs that once gulped air as an emergency measure became the standard equipment for a new kingdom. By the Carboniferous, forests of giant club mosses and horsetails towered 40 meters high. Oxygen reached 35%. Dragonflies with 70-centimeter wings rode thermals above swamps that later hardened into coal. 320 million years ago, a leathery egg evolved. Inside its shell, an embryo floated in its own private sea. Reptiles no longer needed to return to water to reproduce. Land belonged to them. 252 million years ago, Siberian volcanoes erupted for 1 million years and released enough carbon to cook the planet. 96% of marine species, and 70% of land vertebrates perished. It was the worst catastrophe life ever endured. From the wreckage rose the dinosaurs. For the next 186 million years, they dominated every continent. Sauropods stretched their necks into the canopy. Theropods grew feathers and sharp minds. On the supercontinent Pangaea, then on its fragments, they became the most diverse land animals the world had ever seen. 66 million years ago, a 10-kilometer asteroid struck the Yucatan. The impact released the energy of billions of atomic bombs. Fires encircled the globe. Sunlight vanished behind dust for years. The age of dinosaurs ended abruptly. In the warm dawn, after the impact, small mammals crept from burrows. They carried fur, warm blood, and milk. Within 10 million years, they filled roles left vacant by extinct reptiles. 55 million years ago, in Asian rainforests, a lineage of primates evolved forward-facing eyes and grasping fingers. Brains grew larger, social bonds deepened. Millions of years later, in East Africa, a drying climate shrank the forests. One lineage stood upright. Australopithecus walked the savanna while still climbing trees when danger threatened. Homo habilis shaped the first stone tools. Homo erectus tamed fire and spread across 3 continents. Around 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens appeared in Africa. Several years later, a small band crossed into Asia. From there they reached every corner of the planet, painting caves, burying their dead with flowers, and launching boats toward unknown shores. 12,000 years ago, the ice retreated. Sea levels rose 120 meters. In river valleys, people planted seeds and stayed. Villages became cities. Writing preserved memory outside the skull. 500 years ago, ships linked continents. 200 years later, steam engines multiplied human power. 100 years ago, electricity lit the night. 70 years ago, atomic fire was unleashed. 50 years ago, transistors shrank the world into pockets. Today, 8 billion members of a single species reshape the chemistry of air and ocean. Ice caps that endured millions of years melt in decades. A 6th mass extinction unfolds in silence. Yet the same minds that built cities also sent probes beyond the solar system. The same hands that clear forests also sequence genomes and listen for signals among the stars. Every atom in your body was once inside a star. Every breath you take contains molecules that passed through the lungs of dinosaurs. The water in your cells fell as rain on a magma world 4 billion years ago. Earth spent 4.5 billion years preparing a thin, fragile layer where matter became mined. Tonight, under the same Milky Way that watched the first cells divide, the story continues. It is no longer written only in rock and ice. It is written in choices.